Hello, my name is Alessi. I want to make a video called Deuteronomy 22 verses 28 to 29 is about rapist forced to marry his victim. And notice it's not the other way around, that the victim is forced to marry her rapist. Because I think honestly, I guess many Americans misunderstanding Old Testament marriage, where it was about more money. And let's just be honest, in the Old Testament, a wife is viewed as a sex object and producer of children. So we're in the New Testament now. Doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, if you're son or daughter in Christ, you're a child of God, and marriage now it's actually renewed. Where, like for example, Abraham, if push comes to shove, he could have said, "Hey, this is not my wife. This is just my sister," or just say half a truth. This is my sister. Or Jacob using his wives, his children as a body shield before putting him in front of his brother Esau to try and escape if Esau would attack him. But anyway, so Deuteronomy 22 to 28 to 29 is about a rapist forced to marry his victim. And before that, I want to clarify a few things. First, Christians do not have to keep law of Moses. Hebrews 7:12, for when there is a change in the priesthood, there is not necessarily a change in the law as well. So I believe that Christ established a new covenant on the cross. Well, first of all, he fulfilled old covenant during his lifetime, and then he establishes the new covenant upon the cross, and part of the covenant was the law in Old Testament, and as well as in the new covenant. There are new commandments, and overall, simplified a new law as well. So I don't believe that Christians have to keep any of the laws, including 10 Commandments, because which will be another video what will in the future, which actually we're going to look at it, book of Deuteronomy and whole Old Testament to define what is, how is the 10 Commandments actually defined, instead of just assuming things, like keeping the Sabbath is not the same as forsaking assembly of believers, like in Hebrews. Hebrews 4 talks about you have already entered by faith in Christ, and Christ is our Sabbath in Hebrews 4. And do not forsake assembly of believers is different, because technically in the Old Testament Sabbath you would stay home, you would prepare food beforehand, you would not be able to kill the fire, etc. Where in the New Testament, we're not under the law of Moses, we're under the law of Christ. And it would be if you're truly born again, God would put in your heart to meet other believers, other Christians, to fellowship, not socialize, just talk about weather, work, school, etc., where you actually want to edify one another. Second, I believe that Christians should not judge unbelievers nor influence the government who regulates. Here we go. So regulates who shall be put to death. I'm against against the in government. And here's some scriptures to think about it. 1 Corinthians 5, verse 9 through 13. I write to you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people, not at all meaning the sexually immoral of this world, or the greedy, and swindlers, or idolaters, since then you would need to go out of this world. But now I write to you not to associate with anyone who bears the name of brother. That's if he is guilty of sexual immorality, or greedy, or is an idolater, reviler, drunkard, or swindler, not even to eat with such one. For what have I to do with judging outsiders? Is it not those inside the church whom you are to judge? God judges those outside. Purge the evil person from among you. In the Old Testament, this phrase right there in the end, purge the evil person from among you, that would be a death sentence. However, in the New Testament, it's just church discipline. You get rid of somebody. I would say specifically those things, because there's so many commands that either we kind of overlook it or misunderstanding it or think it's a cultural things. Just in the 1 Corinthians. So, for example, like head coverings. I believe that's what it teaches, but but would I put somebody out if I would be another? Hey, you don't wear the head coverings, woman. Get out before you put one on. No. If they want to discuss, I'll willingly will do that. But those specific things, deeds of the flesh, and like I said, I believe that Christians should not judge unbelievers, like in a sense of you can use the law, either or, Old Testament law, New Testament law, to show that they're guilty before God and they're condemned to hell. No shape or form of trying to use the law is like, for example, if I meet Roman Catholics, I believe that Roman Catholicism is evil, and if the person was truly born again, they would get out from that church. They would, like for example, William Tyndale, or Calvin. Well, assuming that Calvin, like I said, William Tyndale, others reformers who got out from Roman Catholic Church, when they started reading the scriptures, they got out eventually from Roman Catholicism because they saw so many things that were wrong and were idolatrous and evil. So the point is that it's like, look, person will get out from those things. If they're born again, they would not stay too long there. So, but the point is going back that, look, if a person claims to be Christian and they claim to be Roman Catholic, and I confront them about like idolatry, like one of the past videos I was making, is that Roman Catholicism is idolatry in the name of God. Pretty much that's from all the way high to the Pope to the just a common Roman Catholic churchgoer. They fall in idolatry. You cannot be Roman Catholic and not be an idolater at the same time. You automatically is an idolater. You have to either worship bread and wine, because they think it becomes body and flesh and blood of Christ, which priest looks reverent upon it, or Mary or Pope. Those worship other than God, triune God, I should say, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So the point is this, that we as Christians, what I see is that we have our own kingdom. I believe in, well, everybody almost defines different, like theonomy or two kingdom doctrine, which what I believe or lean towards, but within even a two kingdom doctrine camp, there's quite a few disagreements. The same thing with theonomist camp, who shall be put to death. So the point is I don't believe in theonomy. I believe that Christians should focus upon kingdom of God, and we already have. We don't have to have a Christian president, because Jesus Christ is already King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He already has given new covenant with the law of Christ in it for Christians and those who outside of being in Christ. They're already condemned in Adam. They're already condemned to hell. So to me, it doesn't really matter what unbeliever do or doesn't do, because which is not of faith is sin. And since unbelievers don't have faith, whatever they do is done outside of faith in Christ. Therefore, everything they do is sin. If they abstain from sexual immorality or they don't, they sin either or. Is they drink, is they alcoholics or they not alcoholics? Doesn't matter. If they steal or they don't steal, they're under condemnation of God. He who doesn't believe is condemned already, because he has not believed upon the Son. So next point, I want to check out this video that I saw. It's video by Joel McDorman, The Death Penalty and Homosexuality. Let's check it out.
Hello and welcome to the Gary DeMar Show once again. I'm Joel McDermott, your host for the next 10 minutes. I'd like to follow up on a program I did just the other day on the bill criminalizing homosexuality that is in the legislature in the nation of Uganda. As many of you know, this has been in the headlines in many places in the United States, particularly over the involvement of supposed right-wingers stimulating this bill and backing it, and also from the alleged influence of Rick Warren, the pastor of the mega church, Saddleback Church in, I believe, Orange County, California. Warren has come out and denounced both the bill and his involvement and his influence in the bill. And the last show I did was around his influence in that and some of the things he had to say. I ended that show with his defense against the death penalty. When he was asked, do you support the death penalty for homosexuals, he put it this way: absolutely not. All life, no matter how humble or broken, whether unborn or dying, is precious to God. My wife Kay and I have devoted our lives and our ministry to saving the lives of people, including homosexuals, who are HIV positive. It would be inconsistent to save some lives and wish death on others. We're not just pro-life, we are whole life. He based his statement on what he called the greatest commandment, which was Jesus teaching us in Matthew 22, 37 through 40, that love your neighbor as yourselves. I commented last time that that is not the greatest commandment. Jesus particularly says in that passage it is the second greatest commandment. The greatest commandment is, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like unto it, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. So, nevertheless, not only was Warren wrong about that, he had God and man in reversed order. He's saying we should love man. That's the greatest commandment. Now, that's probably where the distortion starts. Maybe, I don't know if his thought is consistently thought out like that or not. Is all life, whether unborn or dying, humble, broken, homosexual, or whatever. Is all life precious to God? You know what? Maybe there's a sense in which we can say that. But what Warren doesn't talk about are the legal aspects that are very clearly revealed in the Bible. Nowhere in his statements, in fact, nowhere in his writings that I know of, has he addressed the fact that God has clearly revealed homosexuality as a capital crime. This is a whole list of crimes. Now, the usual way of treating this in the Christian community is what appeared, well, is what appeared in many places. Liberal scholars, even conservative and neo-evangelical scholars. But most recently, after I did the show, we spurred a lot of dialogue on Facebook and in our forums on it. And the arguments always come out. The death penalty for homosexuality is horrible. And so I challenged the gentleman who said this. You're saying the death penalty is horrible. And he says, no, I'm not saying the death penalty is horrible. Homosexuality and murder are not on the same plane. I'm saying that the death penalty is horrible if the only reason you do it for is because a person is accused of homosexuality or convicted of homosexuality. That to me is inconsistent. Where do you get the right to pick and choose your Old Testament laws for which ones are the death penalty?
It's a really good question, Joel, you just have asked. Because apparently, once we start looking at the list, he does himself picks and chooses who shall be put to death. So let's focus on the list, and at the same time, just remember the main topic of our discussion. So let's listen.
God clearly revealed a whole string of them that carry the death penalty. When people try to just wave the book of Leviticus off in general, that causes problems as well. Here's a list of some of the things that Leviticus condemns. I've just taken this directly out of Gary-Wood's commentary on Leviticus. The section, chapters 18 through 20 of Leviticus, forbids sexual contact between close relatives.
By the way, in Alabama, there is a law passed that you can marry your cousin. So quite a few people have to be put to death, and also, what's the name? And the method of how they should be put to death is by stoning to death, not firing squad or hanging or lethal injection or some electric chair or etc.
Is that annulled today? Leviticus prohibits child sacrifice, passing through Molech's fire. Has this law been annulled because Molech is no longer worshipped? Leviticus prohibits theft and lying, defrauding a neighbor, rendering unjust judgment in Leviticus 19:15. Are these laws also annulled? It prohibits making a prostitute of one's daughter. It prohibits the mistreatment of resident aliens. It prohibits false weights and measures. It prohibits children from cursing parents. It prohibits bestiality. Are these two merely holiness code artifacts? Gary North's got a point. Taking that to the particular laws that carry a death penalty, we have even greater issues. Murder obviously carries a death penalty. In some cases, rape carries a death.
Notice, some cases, rape. Let's repeat this again.
Carry a death penalty. We have even greater issues. Murder obviously carries a death penalty. In some cases, rape carries a death penalty. There are several laws.
Some cases, rape, which I agree in some cases. But if you go through the list, like two big things that he kind of omits is worshiping as a god. So you have to choose, by the way, if you're a Christian, are you going to be like, U.S. Constitution, First Amendment right? Or if Mr. McDermott, if you're going to follow, I should say, theonomy, and and if you claim that Old Testament law which was given to the nation of Israel shall be followed by every country then, all the Muslims should be put to death, all the Buddhists should be put to death, which I'm not saying that they should, like I said in the beginning of the video, because I believe that Christians are the ones who are under the law of Christ and not under the law of Moses. So to me, it doesn't really matter who should be put to death, because New Testament particularly does not command that anyone be should put to death, nor should Christians try to make a government to put somebody to death. So the point is that here meets like idolaters should be put to death, who worship other gods, who make an engraven image. And should we just limit this to somebody who makes a sculpture of Christ or Mary, like Roman Catholics do? Or should we actually extend this to so-called Christians who make images of Christ in their movies, which is also, I would say, idolatry. But and the other one is Sabbath keeping. Sabbath is technically from Friday evening till Saturday evening, or should you just change the day and say people who work on Sunday, it's either like a night shift, like from Saturday, like for example, if a person works from midnight Saturday, well, it's technically Sunday, till 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they go to church at 10 o'clock, should this person be put to death because he technically, by the Old Testament standard, has broken the Sabbath? Or like Emily Dickinson wrote, some keep the Sabbath by going to church, I keep the Sabbath by staying at home. So which one is going to be? Which day is going to be, Saturday or Sunday? If it's changed, if the law has changed from Saturday to Sunday, should we keep the same commandments of the Old Testament, or is just don't forsake assembly of believers, of ourselves? So, but going back to the topic, did you notice that he said in some cases rapists should be put to death? Let me play it one more time so you could catch it. So,
a death penalty, we have even greater issues. Murder obviously carries a death penalty. In some cases, rape carries a death penalty.
Some cases.
There are several laws that carry a death penalty.
Yes. So the point is that he does realize that in some cases, some rapists should be put to death. So let's look at it, not just Deuteronomy 28 and 29, but let's start the whole chapter, so would not be a misunderstanding of what actually Deuteronomy teaches. So let's start at verse 13. If any man takes a wife and goes into her and then hates her and accuses her of misconduct, brings and brings a bad name upon her, saying, I took this woman, and when I came near her, I didn't find in her evidence of virginity. Then the father of the young woman and her mother shall take and bring out the evidence of her virginity to the elders of the city in the gate. And the father of the young woman shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man to marry, and he hates her. And behold, he has accused her of misconduct, saying, I find not in your daughter evidence of virginity, and yet this is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloak before the elders of the city. Then the elders of the city shall take the man and whip him, and they shall find him 100 shekels of silver. That's important. and give them to the father of the young woman, because he has brought a bad name upon. So notice this. This elders of the city shall whip him. That's also important. And they shall find him 100 shekels. So here in this case, that a man, he makes a false witness against his wife. So he accuses her of fornication. Notice this. Here, husband accuses his wife of sexual misconduct before marriage, aka for me. So in a new so he accuses her of fornication, having sex outside of marriage before they were married, which is very important once we get to the verse 28 and 29, because some people claim, it was fornication, it was not a rape. I'm like, no, but continue on. So they shall find him 100 shekels of silver and give them to the father of a young woman, because he has brought a bad name upon a virgin of Israel, and she shall be called his wife. He may not divorce her all his days. So the punishment is this. They should whip him, they should find 100 shekels, and he cannot divorce her for the rest of his life. And continue on. But if the thing is true, then the evidence of virginity was not found in the young woman, then they shall bring out the young woman to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her to death with stones, because she has done an outrageous thing in Israel by whoring in her father's house. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. So, New Testament language, once again, death for fornicating woman. Fornicating woman before marriage. Because honestly, like analyzing the scriptures, a man in the Old Testament, once again, Old Testament, don't be like, if you're a man, you're not married like myself, don't say that, hey, Alexis says that if you're a man, you can go fornicate. I never said it. I'm saying that in the Old Testament, in the Old Covenant that God made with Israel, man technically could have sex with unmarried women, which were, like, for example, concubine, which I would say concubine is equivalent of like a sex slave, where you pay or you acquire a woman in a war. You go to war and you can make a concubine out of your sex slave, out of prisoner of war, if you wanted to. or you can go to the prostitute. There is a difference between a temple prostitute and a prostitute. Temple prostitute, like a false god, like some kind of gods. Don't make with some prostitutes. There's two actually different words in Deuteronomy, which is another topic. But the point is that if a young woman was having sex before marriage, she would be put to death. Or a young man, he could have gained a concubine and have sex with her, or pay some money and go into prostitute. And that was, like I said, Old Testament standards. Like Samson, he went out as a prostitute. I think it was Garza. I forgot the name of the town. I think it was Garza, before he was married. So, like I said, there was to some degree, double standards for men and for women. And there's different things that men were held accountable and women were held accountable. There's, for example, if you read Leviticus, that if two men commit homosexuality, that both men shall be killed. But if two women commit homosexuality, also known as lesbianism, it is abomination, but there is no command of putting lesbians to death. That's the interesting part in Leviticus. So continue. So it's death for fornicating woman before marriage. Continue on. If a man is found laying with the wife of another man, both of them shall be put to death. The man who lay with the woman and the woman, so you shall purge the evil from Israel. So, man who willfully sleeps or just sleeps a woman and be put to death. And notice it's kind of clear that a man willfully sleeps with a married woman, and a married woman willfully sleeps with a man. And we don't know if man was was he married or not. It's just, it doesn't matter. If you sleep with a married woman, man and a woman should be put to death. And notice, it's both of them it is consensual. It is consensual sex. They commit adultery, and both of them shall be put to death. Continue on. If there is a betrothed virgin and a man meets her in the city and lies with her, and notice the words. Let's look at in Hebrew, verse 23. Be betrothed, and a man or not finds her, notice in C, and lays with her. And this word is find. Let's see, what's the word? Let's just use number. This one meets, and the second one is it man finds and lies with her. And lies with her. And the reason I'm doing is just to show that it's similar words. So notice this. If there is a betrothed virgin, engaged, like today would be similar but not the same once again, because betrothal is done mostly for money. Like King David married Michal in the First Samuel for, I think it was 100 foreskins of Philistine. Usually it's a price set by the father of a virgin, or supposedly virgin, that he would give this woman to her for a certain price. So engagement, modern day 21st century American engagement is different than in Old Testament engagement, or betrothal, I should say. Continue on. So if there is a betrothed virgin and a man meets her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out to the gates of that city, and you shall stone them to death with stones. The young woman, because she did not cry out for help, though she was in the city. So we can say that this case is about supposed rape, because she did not cry out. And notice the words, because we're going to come back to them. And the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife, so you shall purge the evil from your midst. So here we have a case how is my betrothal? Oops. Virgin was raped and she did not cry out for help. And rapist both be put to death. So next, so notice the wording, and once again, let's look at again. Oh yeah, we already looked at the Hebrew. So notice two words. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. This one right there. Boom. And this one here. Okay. Fine. Okay. Fine. There we go. So you have matzah and shakab. So continue. But if in the open country a man meets a young woman who is betrothed, oh wait, so there is a betrothed virgin. So now it's if a man, so the location now is changed. So there was a city, in a city, and now it's but if in the open country a man meets a young woman who is betrothed, and the man seizes her and lies with her, then the man who lay with her shall die. Rapist shall die, not the victim. 10. So let's look at the words again. So, but if a man in the open country meets a young woman who is betrothed and the man seizes her, notice seizes. Let's look at Hebrew again. Man meets the man. Oh, in King James it translated different. So let's look at it. So word is force or seizes. It's a little different word, but look, hints to seize, be strong, figuratively courageous. So taken by force. So come back to it. So the first word seizes here, which is in Hebrew chazak, chazak. I'm kind of not good in Hebrew. Let's just say that. So chazak, and notice this word lies with her. Lies, and let's look at the word lies. So lies, it's this one. The words that we already looked at it. Lies with her. And shabak. And lies with her. And her, then only the man who lay with her shall die. So rapist shall die, not the victim. So let's look at again who lay. I think it's the next verse. Only who once again. So only that lay, once again the same word. The same word right there. So shall die. So rapist shall die, not the victim. But you do not do nothing to the young woman. She has not committed no offense punishable by death. This case is like that of a man attacking and marrying his neighbor because he met her in the countryside. And notice word met. Let's look at word met in verse 27. Was he found? He found, which found or strong concordance means appear or attain, that is found or acquire, be able to or being or catch. Notice the word catch, and I'm gonna look at it with some more specifically just to show that language-wise speaking, it's the same. So she committed an offense. So word this, and it's matzah. Matzah, we already looked at it. We already remember from previous case what this means. Betrothed, and through the betrothed young woman cried for help. There was no one to rescue her. So here's we come to the main verse. So let's look at it before what we already learned and some of the words that we already look at it. So would be no confusion, no like Alexi, you twisting the Bible, like some people say that I am, but I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just make this video specifically for those people. So we looked at it that if there is a betrothed virgin and a man meets her matzah, meets her in the city and lies with her, shakab with her, then you shall bring them both out of the gate of the city, and you shall stone them to death with stones, the young woman, because she did not cry out for help. So if the rape victim does not cry out for help, then she shall be put to death, and the man because he violated his neighbor's wife. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. Betrothed virgin was raped and she didn't cry out for help, and rapists are both were to be put to death. Notice matzah and shakab. So this is obvious case of for rape. The next one is but if in the open country a man meets a young woman who is betrothed, and the man seizes Chazak seizes her and lies shakab with her, then only the man who lay shakab with her shall die. Rapist shall die, not a victim, but you shall not do nothing to the young woman. She has not committed no offense punishable by death. For this case is like that of a man attacking and murdering his neighbor because he meets matzah her in the open or catches her. Actually, matzah, as we saw, one of it is, what is it? Catch. Before catch, be able, before find or acquire. And it seems like by force. Because, yeah. So let's look at the main event of the verse. So Deuteronomy 22 to 28 and 29. If a man meets, once again, word meets, let's look at it, or finds matzah again, meets, and it's shown, it's catch or acquire or find. You can use the and we're gonna look at it more attentively, like more cases in the Bible, or specifically Deuteronomy. So if a man meets matzah, a virgin who is not betrothed, and seizes her and lies with her, let's look at what seizes means. Betrothed and lay hold. So here we have a word seizes here. Oops. And lies with her. Lies with her. Lies with her. It's the word, oops, and the word is shakab, once again. So here it's interesting that tafas, so seizes, like interesting thing in Hebrew, it mentions 210 times. And what does it, I'm sorry, which one was it? It was tafas, tafas, yeah, tafas. I'm sure it's about pronunciation, so I'm not a Hebrew scholar. I'm just looking at the dictionary. Where is it? Okay, it was here. Okay, tafas. So now we see that this word did not appear before. So the question is this: can we equate, for example, Caesars like Chazak, and Tafas to the same? Because it's clearly this is two words are different, but isn't it just playing on words, or is it actually totally different act? Because it did not appear. So the words, let's look at verse 25 first. Come back to the verse 25. Forces. So let's double check it. Chazak. So to fasten upon, hence to seize, be strong, figuratively courageous, casualty, strength, help, obstinate, to bind, restrain, conquer, aid. So it have multiple definitions of it. It appears 290 times. Most of the time it's strong, like in Deuteronomy, be strong and of a good courage. Have also in Deuteronomy 11:8. Therefore shall ye keep all commandments which I command ye this day, that ye be strong. So it's like strong, strength in Hebrew. Repaired, hold, strengthening. Doesn't appear in the Deuteronomy. Let's see, Exodus. None in Deuteronomy. Courageous. Once again, nothing in Deuteronomy. So it's like can be referred in a positive or negative way. It's just use strength. Really, it's a neutral word. It can be used for good or evil. It's depending on context. So now we go on to the word tafas. So the question is this: can we make a parallel and say that, hey, even though those are two different words, but do they describe the same thing? So 8610 at verse 28, 6, wait. Yeah, tafas. So it only appears 68 times. And one took, Deuteronomy 9:18, it says, and I took the two tablets. I took, it doesn't say I persuaded or I took. Just what's the name? Neutral word. I took the two tablets and cast them upon, cast them out of my hands and break them before your eyes. Took, taken, Deuteronomy 20:19. When thou shalt besiege a city a long time in making war against it, to take it, thou shalt not destroy the trees. So notice this, to take it, it's like take it by force. It doesn't talk about sexual, it's just taken by force. The other one in Deuteronomy twice, one more time, hold, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him. Should they rape him or persuade him and bring him out upon the elders of the city and unto the gate of his place? So it's like a lazy son who doesn't want to work, just being glutton and drunkard, shall be put to death. So interesting things that what's his name? What's his name? So nothing have to do with sexuality. So I'm sorry. Deuteronomy 21:19. Then the same. The next chapter is the same book, which we're talking about, and looks like late. That's it. And the definition of this is this: to manipulate, that is, seize, chiefly to capture, wield, specifically to overlay, figuratively to use to unwarrant, catch, handle, lay, take hold on, over, stop, assure, surprise, take. So interesting things that what's his name? Yeah, and once again, Brown, Driver, Briggs Dictionary, to catch, handle, lay hold, take hold of, seize, wield. Nothing to do with sexuality, but interesting things that I only found out of many commentaries that I have right there, like on my right side. Few of them, notice this, they don't even want to talk about verses 28 and 29. Matthew Henry just super quick. Unbetrothed, he then abuses shall find the father. Denzel if he and the Denzel did concede, but notice this, he adds if. I also thought it's the same. It's like if the father and the Denzel did consent, he shall be bound to marry her and never to divorce her. So if a Denzel not betrothed were thus abused by violence, so at least Matthew Henry acknowledges it was a rape. Then you have Heiko's Preacher's Homiletical. I mean, I was like looking at, I couldn't find it. Like, what is this guy talking about? Like, he almost like admits it. He thinks it's some way it's what is it, in the field, unbetrothed virgin, help. The man paid the father 50 shekels, married the girl, and could not divorce her because he humbled her. It was just like this was to such vicious practices. Once again, humbled her, raped her, or humbled, like, you know, it's almost like they afraid to say there was a rape. And then you have expositor. This guy, like, notice the number, how it goes. He from chapter 22 to all the way chapter 25. And I'm like looking at, I couldn't find it. Like, honestly, I was just like, no way. But interesting thing is that Mr. Gill is the one who says that if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, then he meets one in the field which is not espoused to a man, and the man supposed to be an unmarried, as appears by what follows, and uh, lays hold on her and lies with her, she yielding to it. Notice, he's saying that it was consensual. She yielding to it, and so it is not expressive of a rape. So he denies that it was a rape. It was actually consensual. As Deuteronomy, where a different word from this is there used, which signifies taking strong hold of her and ravishing her by force. Yet this, though owning to his first violation, seizure of her, and so different from what obtained by in enticing words, professions of love, and promises of marriage, and the like. So the guy said, he's saying that Gil, it's not a rape like physical force rape, but it's like seduction type. And I'm just like, yes, those are two different words, but like I said, I looked at it dictionary, and sometimes you have. By the way, I speak Russian, and like for example, even in English, I can give you example. For example, I got it, or I understand it. I got it. It's more of a, what's his name, slang for I understand it. But notice I got it. Only like three what's a letter word starts with G, and understand it. Understand much longer, but it has the same meaning. And I don't see how Mr. Gill, did he really study it, or just like, you know what, it's different words, but you know what, those two different words. Which one was it? Chazak and Tarfas really have the same meaning. So I can say that yes, it's about forcing, using force, where he's saying that enticing words, professions of love, and promises of marriage. And I was just like, why would this? I mean, it just makes zero sense. It just makes zero sense. Like, oh, I seduced her instead of I raped her. Because technically now is this that, what's the name? Let's just say this guy seduced her by saying, I will marry you. I'll promise you I'll marry you. And what's the name? Well, by this law, like, yeah, you will definitely marry her and you will not be able to divorce her. So, I mean, where he gets this. So he trying to use one verse out of, Exodus 22:16, but I mean, she's not betrothed, and life is her. He shall surely her to be his wife. So man entices her, entice a maid that is not betrothed, and lies with her. And it's just like, if her father utterly refused to give her unto him, he shall pay according to the dowry of virgins, shall not suffer to reach. But it's just like, okay, let's just say it extends the law, expands it, instead of like, we take Exodus over Deuteronomy and just say, look, it's not about rape, even though it seems like a rape, and like it's actually a different word. Like, how can he say? Because now it's actually like it is a different word right there. Now it's actually, yes, it does kind of make sense that, yeah, to be open, to simple, to be naive. It's like, yeah, it does seems like this one, right, specifically this case right there. Yeah, it definitely seems that he entices a virgin by his words. Lies he shall surely done, but it's just, in my opinion, those are two different scenarios. It's like one is he uses words. In this particular case, he uses force. So I don't see how he get this. So I believe that, and also notice that what's the punishment? Then the man that lay with her, her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has humbled her. And word humble means, so that's another word, is to be acquired, be boosted with, to afflict, oppress, humble, be afflicted, be bowed down, be put down, become low, to be depressed, to stoop, to humble oneself, bow down. So it's, I mean, this word seems like a rape. I mean, it's kind of close to it, afflict. Like he's this young man, he was afflicting her. He using force, afflicted, humble, forced, humble, exercised, sing, abase, afflicted, affliction, chasten, defiled. Oh yeah, notice defile, like it's specifically what's name, the son of Ham and prince of the country saw her, and he took her and lay with her and defiled her. That seems like a rape. And she answered him, Nay, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing ought to be done in Israel. That's what's some, I think it's brother and sister of David. So it's kind of obvious, ravished. What's the name? That's rape. That's rape. That's definitely a rape. Like in Lamentation 5:11 describes the when Nebuchadnezzar came with his army and soldiers was ravishing virgins in a city. That's in the cities, I should say, in the cities of Jerusalem. I mean, of Judea. That's rape. So by this alone, I can conclude that it is a rape. Oh yeah, let me because he humbled her or raped her. Is it? It's my because he violated her, or let's just be honest, raped her. So he may not divorce her all his days. And the last verse, a man shall not take his father's wife, so that he does not uncover his father's nakedness. So I can conclude easily that just by the last, not the last sentence, but the sentence of the last verse in 29, before the last verse is that he has violated her, hanach. That's I can easily say it's rape. Just look, just you saw me using a dictionary. It's rape. What's the definition of it? Press figuratively. Ravish, but notice they use word ravish, which is, I forgot, I think it was like 13th or 15th century word ravish, which means rape. So, let's read this. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed and seizes tafas her and lies shakab with her, and they are found, then the man who lays with her shall give to the father of the young woman 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has violated anach, raped her. He may not divorce her all his days. See, like in United States, we view marriage as like a romantic thing. Where in the Old Testament, and even today in many countries, marriage viewed as economical, where now he has to provide for her for the rest of her life, or his life, depending who dies first. So that's why it's like the rapist is forced to marry her, in a sense that the marriage forces him to provide for her for the rest of his days or her days. So that's the way it is. And by the way, I made a quick calculation. What's the name of actually, if you're a theonomist, once you think about it, shekel is about 2.5 ounces or 11 grams as of May 26, 2019. 1 ounce of silver is is $14.64. Therefore, if you 2.5 multiply by 50 and then multiply by 14.64, that would equate to almost $300. Let's just say $300, $292.60. $292.60 plus, so he gives this money to the father, and he would have to marry her, and he have to provide for her all the rest of the days of his life. And by the way, people who would say, oh, what about those what's the name? How maybe the value of silver is different. Well, just think of a time of Solomon where silver cost nothing. It literally costed nothing. Like, third world country, this almost, like I said, almost $300. It would be a lot of money. It would be a lot of money. Yes, I agree. But in United States, we almost like live in a time of Solomon. $300 is like a parking ticket right there. If you park in what's his name in a parking place and your car been towed, you about to pay $300 right there. So what's his name? So yeah, that's the price. If you want to round it up of May 26th of May 2019. So daily ration was so the former governments who were before me laid heavy burdens on the people and took from them for their daily ration 40 shekels of silver, even though their servants lorded it over the people, and did not do so because of the fear of God. So if you look at the different scenarios of shekel, how much is like a shekel is, and I'm looking at it and just like, if you look at the time of Solomon, silver shekel was nothing. But at times, when the starvation, like in Second Kings, what is it? Yeah, there was so they besieged a city until donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and it's it's you can it was so the donkey's head is like for 80 shekels of silver, and the fourth part of a cob of doves down for 5 shekels of silver. So think of this: if you find 10 times 5, it's like you just can pay off with 10 doves dung for the rape in the Old Testament, or the time of a great famine in Samaria. So the point is this: Deuteronomy 22 verse 28 to 29 is about rapists forced to marry his victim is because marriage viewed as economical, that now the victim has provided for the rest of her life. And that's the way it is in the Old Testament. And like I said, I don't believe that Christians have to keep the law of Moses, and I also believe Christians should not judge unbelievers nor influence the government who should be regulating death penalty. And I'm against theonomy in the government, so take it how it is. So hope it's been clarifying and edifying, and in some sense rebuking to those theonomists who, like for example, Jeff Durbin, he says that every rapist should be put to death. It's like, no, even Joe McDermott, he understands that not every case of rape is punishable by death. So that's it. Have a nice day. Bye bye.